Chapter 1. The drive to Crazy Town was a good distraction from the thing that Virginia Prescott did not want to think about. It helped that she needed to focus on the snowy, winding road in the steadily worsening weather. And if that didn't keep her mind off the thing, there were her passengers. It was probably her imagination that inimical gazes bored holes into her back. Gini risked a look in the rear-view mirror and caught Isaac looking at her. He met her gaze for a second that felt longer than that, then it slid away with more composure than Gini had had at 9. Her twin sister's new stepson was a little scary. Gini was still trying to figure out how Isaac and his sister had landed in the rear seat of her rented SUV. There were unmistakable signs they were not willing passengers for this trip. Isaac wasn't openly hostile yet, but Daphne had made it clear Gini would have to bust an impossible move to rise to the level of pond scum. Gini didn't blame them. They'd had no say in the very recent marriage of their dad, and it was clear that this absent-minded professor-ish parent had either forgotten to brief them or punted that job to her. Biff and Vanessa both worked at NASA, in the same department. It was how they met. But Gini didn't entirely buy into the emergency that had left her holding the kids. Not that she begrudged the newlyweds some alone time, but they'd better show up for Christmas. Or sooner. Both of them. Period. For sure the snow was showing up. From what she could see in the headlights, it was going to be a very white Christmas. It occasionally snowed in Dallas, but for the whitest of white holidays, she'd always had to come home. The swirling flakes had looked pretty dancing around the deer antler arch, at the edge of the small Wyoming town where she and Van had grown up. The sight of it stirred her happy memory cortex. Would Van make it in time to watch White Christmas with them? Even if they didn't sing the sisters' song out loud, which would probably be an even worse sin than Van marrying the kid's dad, they'd exchange a look that said they were singing inside their heads. It was their song. And in the morning after the presents and the feast, which could be great or awful, depending how much access Mom gave them to the kitchen this year, there'd be deep white drifts for snowball fights and snow angels, and sledding and getting so cold hot chocolate was critical for survival. As if Daphne sensed her happy thoughts and deplored them, Gini heard a sigh and possibly felt it ruffle her hair from the teen side of the vehicle. Sucked to be 13. And the two kids lived with their mom, so their dad not showing up at the airport to collect them would have upped the disappointment factor by an equation only Van was smart enough to figure out. Gini had tried to lighten the atmosphere with some carols, the only music the radio could pick up, but that just seemed to expand the cloud of not happy to the point of stifling, despite the headphones firmly clamped over Daphne's ears. She couldn't remember exactly how it felt to be 13, but she did remember not liking much, including herself. In distant memory of that awful time, Gini turned the happy and the music off. It was the least she could do. Possibly the only thing she could do. Ho ho ho. Isaac also wore headphones. Thank goodness she didn't have to hear his game, which gave off an eerie green glow, like it was coming from a war bunker or something. Ho 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 again. She was kind of surprised that Biff hadn't responded to her text that she'd collected his children from the airport. She'd even left off the guilt attachment, which was, in her opinion, hugely magnanimous of her. It was possible her timing was awkward. Or maybe there really was an emergency, though she couldn't imagine what emergency NASA could have that would be big enough to disrupt Christmas. Daphne for sure hadn't believed it, if her extreme eye roll was any indication. Discontent was an almost visible haze back there, though it did go with the green glow. She saw a familiar half-rock, half-log gate and took the turn. Almost there now. She kind of felt like she ought to warn them that there might be worse than an unwanted step-aunt to face at the cabin, but she didn't know what version of crazy she'd find. Her mom, who had given birth very late in life, had been a solid 12 on a 10-point weird scale, with 10 being the most extreme, even before age had started to degrade her synapses. At least the incoming quirky to bat crap crazy weird was a great distraction from, but she wasn't thinking about the thing. Her SUV swept around a corner, and the edge of the lights caught a blur of movement. Ginny didn't hit the brakes, but she did take her foot off the gas. The thickening swirl of flakes remained mercifully clear of solid objects. She did not need to slam her rental into a deer. Not that, but the light and night must be playing tricks on her. She thought she'd seen a glimpse of something small and green, but that was crazy even for Crazy Town. She'd checked the weather about 100 times before boarding her plane, but the storm had stubbornly refused to commit until she was on the ground and headed for the cabin, a cabin her mom should so not be occupying, with or without a live-in caregiver. And yet here Ginny was, ferrying the reluctant step-grandkids over the frozen creek and through the snowy woods to step-grandma's house. She just prayed that Van and Biff would make it before the storm closed the road. The eerie glow on Isaac's side of the car faded to black. For no reason she could identify, that made her uneasy. Dateline, notes from Isaac's strategic planning notebook. I am unable to create an adequate battle plan until I reach our destination. Advanced intelligence is sketchy. Indications are we are headed to a remote cabin. Normally would not object. But situation not normal. Remote might be satisfactory for overseeing exit operations, if not for the extreme weather situation. If can't act soon, Mom might notice her credit card is missing. Still undecided about recruiting Daphne. She's been really weird since she turned 13. Our captor has not left us alone since the ambush at the airport. Though not yet openly hostile, must assume captor is good cop, with bad cop due to arrive with dad. There is also the problem of transportation. Not sure driving simulations enough experience for road conditions. Dateline from Daphne's cell phone. OMG, the sister looks just like her. So creepy. I could just die. Will never forgive dad for this. Never. Losing bars. I am in. Dateline Advanced Scouting Party Report. Observe the Earth-based land vehicle approaching destination. Storm complicating operations. Unable to ascertain which humans inside. Awaiting report from team at Earth structure. Please report on status of failed cloak, and when communications with XOZYPSNR will resume.